Good morning. I'm going to call the meeting to order today. Today is October 6, 2025, and the Audit Oversight Committee meeting is called to order. Will the city clerk call the roll, please?
Chair Price.
Present.
Member Kircher. Excused. Member Bruni. Excused. Member Booker.
Present.
Member Kelly.
Here.
Thank you, Chair. You have a quorum.
Thank you, and I would just like to start real quick by welcoming Councilwoman Kelly here to the Audit Committee, and congratulations on that. We look forward to having you here.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 2, an announcement regarding the compliance with open meeting law. To the city clerk, has this meeting been noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law?
Yes, Chair, it has.
Thank you. We'll be moving to item number 3 on the agenda. Agenda item number 3 is public comment. Comment during this period of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the amount of any single speakers allowed may be limited. Is there anyone wishing to be heard at this time? Seeing no one, I'll close the public comment portion and we'll move on to agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4, for possible action to approve the final minutes by reference of the regular meeting of July 21st, 2025. Is there a motion for approval?
I move for approval.
There is a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
I have a question.
Yes.
Should I be abstaining since I wasn't present at that meeting?
Oh, that's a good question.
This is Nicole Garcia from the City Attorney's Office. You can still vote on the minutes.
Thank you. Aye.
Aye as well. All in favor? Any opposed? Please post, please. And the motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 5. Discussion for possible action regarding Oversight Committee quarterly meeting dates for the calendar year 2026. The following dates have been proposed for holding the quarterly Audit Oversight Committee meetings in 2026. They are January 12th, April 20th, July 20th, and October 12th. All of these meetings will be held at 10 a.m. Do I have a motion to accept these dates and time?
I'll move to accept the proposed dates and times.
There is a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Please post. And the motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 6. Agenda item number 6. Report by staff and discussion for possible action regarding an update on issued audit recommendations. Brian Smith, City Auditor, will begin this report. Please go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Chair Price. Brian Smith, City Auditor. I'd like to also extend a welcome to Councilwoman Kelly. Appreciate her service on this committee and look forward to working with her.
Thank you.
Twice a year, we have the opportunity to brief the Audit Committee on the status of previously issued audit recommendations, and we'd like to do that today. Prior to the finalization of every audit report, City Management requests that management provide us with their management action plan and an estimated date of completion for every audit recommendation. We place these management responses at the back of every audit report. Upon release of an audit report, each audit recommendation is classified as not due. Once an audit recommendation's estimated date of completion passes and the recommendation has not yet been verified as being complete by an auditor, the classification of the recommendation is then changed to incomplete. When a department alerts our office they believe they have fully addressed an audit recommendation and are ready for us to review their work, the recommendation is then identified as verification in process. Once an audit recommendation has been verified by an auditor as having been addressed, the recommendation classification is then changed to complete. Over the past 3 calendar years, our office has issued a total of 84 audit recommendations to departments to improve their internal controls, their policies and procedures, and also improve efficiencies within their departments. As you can see from this table, the departments have successfully responded to our recommendations and completed 76 of these 84 audit recommendations as of today. No recommendations are incomplete. 7 recommendations are classified as not due, as the date that was provided to us by management has not yet passed. And then we have 1 recommendation that is currently being verified by our office. I wanted to applaud the efforts of the city departments that we worked with in completing these audits, and especially their efforts in addressing the audit recommendations that we provided to them. The 1 recommendation that is in process of being verified is with the Finance Department. Our payment collections audits in 2023 identified the need for finance to clarify some cash handling procedures within the citywide cash handling policy. At the time of our audit, finance acknowledged that the entire cash handling policy needed updating and chose to proceed with doing so. As of today, they have updated the policy, and they're just waiting for final approval by the city unions for finalization of this policy. The new policy will now be known as the payment collection policy. We will end up closing out this recommendation once the policy and procedure has been approved. We applaud the efforts of the Finance Department in addressing our recommendations, and especially for going above and beyond in updating this citywide policy and procedure. Having current policies and procedures certainly makes life easier on us as auditors as we audit to those policies and procedures. So we commend them on their efforts. Corey DeMille, our city treasurer, is in attendance if you have any questions about this policy.
Is there any questions from anyone? Ms. Kelly, Councilwoman?
Thank you. Since I'm the new person, I've got a question that is relatively simple, I'm sure, to answer. The 2 recommendations that are completed, the 1 verification process, is the 1 verification in process because it is yet to be approved by the unions?
Yes.
So then it would, once approved by the unions, it would become 3 recommendations.
Then we will, I'm sorry, Brian Smith, City Auditor. Once that policy is approved, we decided, we've put it in this category of verification and process, since it really is going to be, it's going to be approved probably
Right,
within
it's
the
just
next
the
couple
process
weeks.
hasn't completed,
Yeah.
but then it would become added to
Complete.
3, oh, okay, and the
Yeah.
whole thing would be complete.
Exactly.
And then, in terms of just timing, so this was from the audit that was conducted in 2023. So we're in 2025. Help me understand the timing of how these things take place.
Yes, thank you. Great question. Brian Smith, City Auditor. So back in 2023, we actually did multiple audits of various locations where payments are collected. It included several community centers, a cultural center, also Floyd Lamb Park. And as we were doing these audits, we identified just some challenges in trying to understand what the policy was saying and the direction that it was being provided to the departments. And so we issued multiple, even though these audits were focused on parks and recs operations at these community centers and the cultural centers, we issued recommendations to the Finance Department, asking them to clarify some of the procedures within the citywide cash handling procedure. So to their credit, it does take a lot to update these policies, especially this one. I believe the policy is over, I think it's over 15 pages long, something to that extent. And also, there's a formal approval process that has to be followed in the city for adopting any policy. So they took it upon themselves to update the entire policy, and also they gave us the opportunity to give our feedback on the policy. And so there was back and forth, and thankfully we finally have a policy that's ready to be approved.
Mr. Chairman, may I? And once it's complete, what sort of training then do we do? 15 pages seems like a lot for a policy, and I'm sure it's 15 pages because it needs to be, But how do we then go out and train our employees to make sure that they're fully educated on the process so that they know what they should or should not be doing?
Brian Smith, City Auditor, another great question. I'd like to turn it over to Finance, if you don't mind, and have a representative talk about their plans to educate the city staff on this new policy.
Hello, Corey DeMille, Treasury Section Manager. To address your question, I plan on, once it is complete, I will go out and meet with all departments one-on-one. I tend not to do a whole group meeting because I think it would be better to meet one-on-one. So I plan on going out there, comparing the old one to the new one to show what's changed, so what they can expect. And from there, we'll go over there's a new part of the policy that addresses this finding. It's basically a checklist for the departments to show that they understand the internal controls that we've placed, and as documentation, they will complete a checklist to confirm that. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Thank you.
Any
Brian Smith,
additional questions?
Chair Price,
yes.
Brian Smith, City Auditor, just a final comment on that. As Corey mentioned, I think that is a great way to approach training these departments, because the cash handling in each department is somewhat unique. The policy that they've created is this umbrella policy giving, the minimal standards that are required for cash handling of the city. But there are differences, inevitably, cash being collected at the municipal court versus at a community center. And so I commend Corey for this approach.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to make sure if we're holding people accountable as we're changing things, that they're properly trained and informed on how they're held accountable, how that may change. So thank you.
All right, Brian Smith, City Auditor. I have now asked each of our auditors to provide you with a brief summary of some of the recent accomplishments of the departments in addressing our audit recommendations over the last couple of years. Louis Halad, our IT auditor, will be the first presenter.
Good morning, Louis Halad, Senior IT Auditor. So last summer, as exactly one of you will remember, we completed an audit of the IT department and issued 7 recommendations regarding the inventory and tracking of important hardware assets. In response to these recommendations, the IT department has completed all 7, including the following improvements. Hardware assets that require a higher level of inventory tracking, such as servers, computers, are sensitive assets. They're clearly labeled now inside of the hardware register that IT maintains, indicating whether each device is either a fixed asset, meaning that it was capitalized at the time of purchase, a sensitive item, meaning it carries some inherent risk of theft or compromise, or other, meaning it's not a fixed asset or a sensitive item. IT management has laid out a clear definition of what they consider a sensitive item, putting that definition in writing, saying what properties might make something be considered a sensitive item by the department. All inventory control processes have been clearly documented in the form of a guidebook for new and existing employees, and all of their processes are clearly laid out in that guidebook. The new guidelines have been put into practice. IT has completed a full inventory of all capitalized or sensitive hardware assets across the city. So everything is in its place and we know where it is. IT has also overhauled its reconciliation process with the finance department, ensuring that the 2 departments are in regular communication about the status of the capitalized assets. Each department has a separate register of capitalized devices, capitalized assets, and so they are making sure they stay in lockstep between those 2 lists. And finally, IT has provided a full and accurate update of all of the capitalized assets to the finance department as we requested for them to do. Like I said, this completes all of the recommendations for that report. We're appreciative of the efforts from both departments, IT and finance. They did a great job responding to these recommendations, and better records and more complete processes help us to protect our important hardware assets across the city. And that is it for that report. And next up is James Burnett, our senior auditor.
Good morning, James Burnett, Senior Internal Auditor.
Welcome. Your conference will begin shortly. Please enter your PIN number followed by the pound sign. Welcome. Your conference will begin shortly.
Should we proceed on agenda item number 6? Continue on agenda item number 6. James Burnett, Senior Auditor, is going to talk about Economic and Urban Development Department, I believe.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is James Burnett. I'm Senior Internal Auditor. I'm pleased to report that Parking Services has fully implemented the 14 recommendations from our March 2024 audits. By implementing the audit recommendations, Parking Services has improved management oversight of cash collections by creating procedures for periodic audits, improved physical security by improving management oversight over count room access, as well as implementing procedures designed to improve controls over keys for the safety deposit boxes in which the change funds are stored, improved management oversight over system permissions to reduce the risk of inappropriate access, and improve identification of transactions should an issue arise, and improved management's ability to identify and detect errors and potential misappropriation of parking fees through improved tracking and management review of discrepancies. Our office appreciates Parking Services' efforts in addressing our recommendations, and I will now discuss the recommendations from our business licensing compliance audit. I am pleased to announce that Community Development has fully implemented 6 recommendations from our June 2025 audit of their business licensing compliance section. By implementing the audit recommendations, Community Development improved management oversight by developing performance metrics and reports that better reflect the work that is being performed by their licensed officers, improved coordination with fire prevention to licensed fourplex apartment homes, and as of August 28th, 2025, Community Development has reported that they have successfully licensed 88% of the identified fourplex homes. They've improved communication with citizens by updating guidance provided to fourplex applicants, documenting the inspection process for getting licensed, and they've also improved oversight of system access changes. As of today, there are 4 outstanding recommendations which are currently not due. We appreciate Community Development's efforts in addressing our recommendations. Nancy Cardoso, Senior Auditor, is up next.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
question.
Any questions, please?
please. Hello, Mr. Burnett. When, and I'm not sure maybe to whom I direct this, Mr. Smith, but when you're doing the business licensing audit, is there any portion of that audit that looks to see how we're serving the customers? Or maybe in this one, it happened to be just compliance from behind the scenes?
Excellent question. Our audit worked with the business licensing compliance officers to look at their day-to-day operations. And one thing we found, and we discussed with officers what things they could be done to make their jobs easier, what are their challenges, and we worked on creating an audit program that worked on confirming and then addressing those deficiencies that they noted. Ultimately, the goal is to better serve the customers, and if they don't, the constituents, the citizens. And so hopefully that answers your question.
It tells me what you're doing, which I appreciate. That helps me understand that. And maybe the question, this isn't the appropriate venue for it, but one of the, we are a government that is closest to the people, and so wherever we do. So in this particular instance, I see our role as someone who's represented the business community for so long as being welcoming to business, the fact that you want to invest your capital and resources. We want to get you up and going as quickly as possible so you can do what you do best, which is business purses and expand jobs and improve the local economy. When we interact with people, person A could be much more welcoming, much easier to interact with, still doing all the compliance things that need to be done for the procedural part of their job, while employee B may not be as welcoming and as forthcoming and as helpful. And so maybe that happens more for management oversight than it does necessarily for an audit. So my question was, is the interaction with our customers, and maybe it's more precisely part of this audit, and then I guess in a broader way, is it part of any audit that you conduct?
Brian Smith, City Auditor. The scope of this audit that we completed with business licensing was focused on their compliance section. Okay. And as James mentioned, one of our recommendations related to the metrics that the department tracks on the compliance section. And so some of those metrics are, for example, how quickly do the compliance staff respond to a complaint on a business? How quickly is that resolved? And what we did find is there was definitely a need to improve their metrics to provide information to management on their activities. They had some minimum, they had some metrics, but we didn't feel like it fully addressed their operations. There was an opportunity to identify, the number of complaints by ward, the number of complaints by business type. And so that was one of our recommendations. Now,
But certainly, I'm understanding on the compliance side.
right now, so far as did we do a community survey or survey those individuals? That is certainly something the department could do to get feedback from business owners as to how well they were treated by the licensed officers. Certainly, as auditors, we could do something like that.
I certainly don't want my first day to be offering more work, but I appreciate the clarification. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And Brian Smith, City Auditor, also the city does, is it an annual community survey? Right.
If I may, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we were talking about the last community survey that was done at our special strategic planning meeting last week.
Right. So there could be an opportunity within that community survey to ask about the public's interaction with our
Actually, a good
compliance
idea.
officers.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Councilwoman, additional comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, I guess, congratulate the business licensing division because, these recommendations came out initially in June, and within a few months, they've already completed a lot of the recommendations, and it's a very small office, and so I really want to just commend them for their quick action.
There's any additional comments or questions moving forward? I guess we will continue on. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Nancy Cardozo, Senior Internal Auditor. I'm happy to report that YDSI has completed all of the recommendations from my report on the Batteries Included youth programs. As a result of their efforts in response to our audit recommendations, youth travel procedures and documentation have been improved, reducing the risk associated with travel. Staff are now communicating with the city's risk manager prior to their trips to confirm insurance requirements and safety measures that may be needed. Software is being implemented to enhance the record keeping and reporting on their programs. And finally, management has begun internally evaluating policy and procedure compliance within their other programs. Joseph Throneberry, Senior Forensic Auditor, is up next.
Good morning, Joe Throneberry, Senior Forensic Auditor. Our office appreciates the Department of Public Safety's implementation of 6 recommendations from our September 2024 audit related to the Deputy City Marshal's Evidence Unit, as well as the Corrections and Administrative Services Inmate Commissary contract, that is with Keith Group. We can report that DPS management has completed all audit recommendations for both of these audits. Highlights from the completed recommendations include, as it relates to the evidence unit, recommendations to terminate unnecessary access and generic user accounts within the evidence unit's electronic inventory system, as well as instituting quarterly system access reviews, resulted in DPS reducing cybersecurity risk and aligning permissions to specific users and job functions. Additionally, we confirmed that DPS addressed the evidence unit's recommendations from a 2018 external consultant report that was requested at the time by the city manager and embedded those practices into their daily operations of the evidence unit. We should note that during our audit, all items that were contained within the evidence unit did match the description, location, and data that was in the electronic case management system. And so they were 100% compliant with what we identified as our audit sample. Specific to DPS's commissary contract with Keith, an external vendor. We documented procedures that were related to the purchasing, expense monitoring, and price reconciliation that the vendor was charging our inmates. The audit identified areas of opportunity in regards to that contract monitoring and procedures, and DPS made those corrections. Those improvements not only made consistency amongst the staff, but also allowed for training of individuals as well as cross-training members of the department to improve efficiency. Moving on to fire rescue. Fire rescue was an audit that was just completed in June of 2025. They highlight fire rescue has completed 3 out of the 6 recommendations as they relate to the controlled substance management process within the EMS division. The 3 accomplishments were they've updated and posted their current operational policy that also addresses their quality assurance program that's now included in the revised policy. Additionally, there's now a process to reconcile between finances, administrative services, and the vendors. And so Oracle data is matching our DEA 222 forms, as well as the tracking of the items that were received by fire operations. And so those processes have now aligned, which gives independent assurance over the controlled substance inventory within the city. We were proud to say that during our audit, we were out in the stations verifying the controlled substance logs, and we identified that all controlled substances, ketamine, fentanyl, and Versed, that is purchased by the city was accounted for with no items missing. With that, I will turn it over to Brian Smith, City Auditor.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
For the 3 not due recommendations, do you have a sense of when those are due? Is it first quarter 2026 or later in the year? And I'd have the same question for Mr. Burnett, because I noticed there are 4 not due for the Community Development Department as well.
I can answer that. Those for fire rescue, the open items that are outstanding involve technology reviews. So the case management system for medical incidences, fire incidences, as well as the administration of controlled substances is image trend. And so that it's been a while since they have evaluated that system to bring up any new functionalities that vendor may have. The second component, and so that evaluation to assess their current case management system is going to be due in the coming year, in 2026. However, the second component of that is looking at automated processes. Right now, the controlled substance management process is very manual. It has log books at each fire station. There would be no simple way to get an on-hand inventory without actually physically verifying it or calling each station if I was the fire chief and needed to know that information. Whereas there are automated case management systems that will control it on an automated basis that will provide instant real-time information as to expiration dates, what's received, and can potentially cross over to the financial system in Oracle to verify from a cradle-to-grave process. That is going to be looked at second, and that open recommendation exceeds 2027 due to the potential fiscal cost for that system.
Very informative. Thank you. Yeah, and just Mr. Burnett for the 4 not due for the Community Development Department.
James Burnett, Senior Internal Auditor. The next audits recommendations that are due are in May of 2026.
Thank you.
Some additional comments, questions?
I just have a question. Joe, you mentioned that as part of the compliance, the Oracle system was aligned with DEA. Did you say DEA?
The DEA 222 form is the order that our medical director form places to the controlled substance vendor. We found during the audit that the operational processes, that was 100% compliant. However, due to vendor issues, the invoice numbers were not matching up within Oracle. And so there is a process now that, that has addressed that, but there's also automated systems that are out there. So when the EMS division leadership would need to order controlled substance, if it wasn't on automated orders based upon replenishment levels set by the medical director, there could be an automated DEA 222 form, which is the ordering form for those controlled substances, and that could be done automated and potentially integration to Oracle so it can match up. Right now, it's a manual process.
Any additional questions before we continue on? All right, continuing on. Thank you.
Brian Smith, City Auditor. So that's a summary of the recommendations that have been cleared over the last couple of years. I'd like to thank the City Manager's Office, the City Department Directors, as well as their staff for their help with these audits and their efforts in addressing the recommendations. Without their help, we as auditors, we only have so much authority, and they help us make the changes that are needed to improve the city's operations. So we appreciate their help. And that concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Seeing no more additional questions from the members, may I have a motion to approve the report?
I move to approve the reports as presented.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Please post, and the motion carries. Let's move on to item number 7. Agenda item number 7, report by staff regarding current audits. Brian Smith, City Auditor, will give this report. Please go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Chair Price. Brian Smith, City Auditor. The audits we're currently working on include one in HR, which involves the employee separation process. We have a draft report, and we're working through the reporting and review process with that report, and anticipate that will be released within the coming month or so. We also are working on an audit of the witness fee fund that is found over in the municipal court. This is a fund that actually belongs to the city attorney's office, but the distribution of the funds are completed by municipal court employees. And so we're also in the reporting phase of that audit, and once again anticipate that report being issued within the next month or so. Also, we're in the middle of an audit of mobile communication devices that is managed by our IT department, and Louis Allott, our IT auditor, is working on that audit, and we're in the fieldwork stage of that audit. Also, we have some upcoming audits based on our audit plan that was approved last meeting. We look at doing an audit within purchasing, also within the municipal court, and also within public works. And the scope, the nature and the scope of those audits will be defined in our planning process, and also after meeting with the department directors in those areas. And that concludes my report.
Looking for any questions? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, when will you share the scope of the upcoming audits? Will it be at the next audit committee meeting, or will you do that prior to the next meeting?
Brian Smith, City Auditor. Yes, with our planning process, there's multiple stages. Of course, as we approach any audit, we'll meet with the department director to get their input. Sometimes we find that directors, they may have a need where they think that we could provide some some value to their department. And so we welcome that input. Also, we do our own risk evaluation of the area. Of course, the court is a very large organization, so we're going to have to whittle it down as to exactly what area do we want to focus on. And so also as a part of our planning process, we reach out to all the council members, letting them know that we're planning on doing this audit, and we solicit input from all the council members. Sometimes we have council members that have specific things they would like us to address as a part of the audit. And so once again, we welcome that feedback. Yes, once we open up the audit, we can share that scope with you at the next meeting. Yeah.
Are there any additional questions? I have one comment here on agenda item number 7. It was kind of a carryover from agenda item number 6 regarding the incomplete recommendations, or the ones that are in process. I know that in the past, and maybe we save it kind of towards the end of the year, we summarize maybe on one sheet from the different departments all the outstanding. So there's kind of one place we can look and say, how many are outstanding moving forward? And make sure that those things are getting kind of checked off that list as they kind of accumulate. So I think we maybe did that last year, or I don't know if we included in every quarterly meetings handout, but just kind of that running list of what's open so we can see that they're getting checked off, and as new things come on, the other stuff's going off in kind of in one place.
Brian Smith, City Auditor. Yes, Chair Price, we certainly can do that. This was kind of a unique status today because all of the audit recommendations have essentially been addressed. We had that one that we're just waiting on the policy to be approved. But as of today, everything that management told us they would have addressed by their estimated date of completion has been addressed. But we'll certainly look at a better way to share with you the status of all these recommendations.
Because it is in real good shape. You know,
Right.
We've seen in the past where some of the audits are just very significant and they take a lot of time, and those recommendations are not all created equal. Like you had mentioned earlier, the cash policy recommendation. That is such a significant policy update for the whole organization that it does take time to emanate through all the departments and really process that versus other recommendations that are simple updates. So to kind of keep a handle on that's important. And like you said, there's not many at all outstanding because the departments are doing such an excellent job, because everybody's coming together. And we talked about it just real briefly in the past about how the auditor and the city attorney's departments, they're so necessary in keeping the city out of trouble, preventing things before they happen by reviewing their own internal procedures and making sure that, yeah, you're doing what you say you're doing, we're here to help, and we're a team against the outsiders that are trying to find you doing something wrong. Internal audit and the city auditor's departments are like, they're the, like I see on the screen here, the IT heroes. They with the departments are the champions against the outside world who's trying to find out everything that's going wrong and prevent that, before it happens. So everyone's doing such a great job with that. Thank you. Please.
Your comments, Chairman, made me think of a question. Do we ever do a press release to highlight the good work that the department's doing, the clean findings, et cetera, or just the way the departments are moving on some of the recommendations? Again, to your point, just to sort of sing your praises and the good work of the city and its teams.
Brian Smith, City Auditor. In the past, a while ago, we did do an annual follow-up report that became a public report, like all of our audit reports. We've never done formal press releases. We certainly could. That's something we could look at. I'm not sure how much the press, pays attention to the agenda of this meeting. That, as you're aware, there have been times when press has shown up and pick up on some of the elements of our audits. But that's certainly something we could look at. Yeah.
Thank you. They do seem to show up, but they seem to show up when things are going wrong. So the fact that everything is going right is a great thing, and excited about that. Are there any more questions from the members? Seeing none. This item is report only and no motion is required. We will move on to item number 8. Item number 8, report by staff regarding fraud prevention and detection program. Joe Throneberry, Senior Forensic Auditor, will give this report. Please go ahead, Mr. Throneberry.
Thank you, Chair Price. As stated previously with the Audit Committee in prior meetings, the city's fraud hotline went live on September 23rd, 2024, so just over a year. That hotline is accessible via phone, mobile devices, online, both internally and externally, 24/7, allowing individuals to submit reports in multiple languages. Just for our new committee members, the current fraud policy, which is being updated, was originally created in the early 2000s and directed folks to the marshals, DPS, to call in as if they were reporting a crime. So it wasn't very user-friendly, and anonymous ways to report tips was not necessarily available or is easily accessible. The fraud hotline now is accessible anonymously. You can identify yourself, and with it being available internally and externally, is available to anyone who wishes to report information that the city should be aware of. And when that comes in, it is through the Ethics Point case system. That sends an email to the city manager, city attorney, and city auditor, who review that and then delegate that out to the appropriate staff to work whatever tip or information was provided. How we've communicated that, we have fraud posters posted, they're Speak Up posters that have now been provided and distributed to all departments and should be included with other mandatory HR information. So you should see these up with the other HR information that's legally required to be posted. These HR has communicated and posted those throughout the city. Additionally, the hotline has been addressed and promoted in multiple weekly updates that come out every Wednesday to employees through their email account. We are looking at other ways. You mentioned you saw one of the IT pop-ups for Cybersecurity Month. We are taking a look and partnering with the city manager to have a similar, especially in Fraud Awareness Week upcoming in November, having additional communications focusing on fraud, waste, and abuse reporting throughout the city. So that QR code on the poster is an example of, should be scannable from the screen, or if not on the agenda, that will allow people to report through their mobile device. The Fraud Committee, as I mentioned, is comprised of the city manager, city attorney, and city auditor, and meets monthly or as needed, depending upon the circumstances, to review activity related to fraud, waste, and abuse. The Fraud Committee, through its staff, is actively working to update the city's fraud policy, which I mentioned, and align it with related procedures based upon best practices from across the nation as it relates to other cities, counties, states, city auditors, inspector general's office for government reporting. So we are looking at best practices, as well as taking lessons learned from the activity that has been reported into the fraud hotline thus far. As of this morning, we have 36 incidences that were reported through the hotline. Action is taken on all complaints, either by initiating an investigation, making a referral to human resources, if it involves an employee. Issues involving vendors and contractors would go to the city manager and Department of Finance for purchasing contract review. And then most of the complaints that have come in have been referrals, so it's guiding the citizen. In most cases, it's an external person reporting an issue such as identity theft or another complaint and directing them to the most appropriate resources, which is usually the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. So we are having citizens interact, people are finding it, they are reporting information. And in most cases, it's external. It involves identity theft or other conduct that the individual feels is fraud, waste, or abuse. So we guide them into the right resource so that they can get that activity resolved. The city auditor's office will continue to partner with the city attorney and city manager to further promote the hotline, as we talked about, amongst employees, and where appropriate, participate in fraud investigations to ensure that any citywide or department systemic issue has been addressed. So we are looking that when there is a confirmed fraud, that we will go ahead and look at that from an internal audit perspective to identify those control failures, look at policy enhancements, and make those improvements so that we don't have that issue reoccur again, hopefully. This concludes my report, and I will now open it up for any questions.
Are there any questions from anyone? Please.
Thank you, Joe. You said 36 incidents. Is that since the hotline opened?
It is since it opened.
Okay, and those are confirmed fraud?
No, they are incidences that were reported in. Out of that, there is one open outstanding issue that is being looked at. What the city auditor's office does is looking at doing is providing an annual report based upon the calendar year that will outline what the actions are. But nearly all of these were issues, either policy and procedure that were human resources related, or they were issues of a criminal nature that did not involve the city.
And is it your office that responds to everybody who calls in and makes that referral? And if so, what's your average timeline for actually responding or getting back to somebody who's called in something that really is a case for Metro?
So it is posted that it's a non-emergency, that if they have an emergency to dial 911 that we have out there. But the emails that come through are addressed, I would say reviewed near instantaneously, or within usually less than a 12-hour period. They go to the city attorney, city manager, and city auditor, and the communication has been less than 24 business hours in all cases.
And Brian Smith, city auditor. So as Joe mentioned, anytime a fraud report comes in, the three of us, city attorney, city manager, and myself, receive that email. And it's pretty obvious. We know very quickly whether it's under our jurisdiction or it's outside. And so we're able to respond to the reporter very quickly. Now, one thing I'm working through right now is when there is a case of confirmed fraud, I'm working through how best to communicate that with council as well as the citizen committee members. And in fact, we have a fraud committee meeting this week, and one thing I plan on discussing with Mike and Jeff is potentially having in the private briefings with the council briefings. I think that may be the best place for us to share that information with you. If you have any input on that, I'd appreciate that. So as Joe mentioned, there is currently an ongoing investigation that we'll want to report to you at the proper time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are there metrics that other municipalities or government organizations use to validate the efficacy of their fraud report system? You know, is there some group who does it really well and it's on a per X amount of reports per what? I mean,
So there are vendor standards as far as based upon full-time equivalent hours that you would look at for an organization or the city, such as having nearly 4,000 employees, what you would expect. We are under that average based upon what the vendor has stated, so that is a positive. One unique factor is the community. Each jurisdiction may have different issues, and so we see a lot of the fraud policies where the city auditor's office may be independently elected, or it may be where they are under the city manager structure versus ours, which reports to mayor and council. Each jurisdiction, depending upon how they're structured, has their own unique format. A lot of them will take the information, make a referral. One thing that we are looking to do is work collaboratively with all three, city manager, city attorney, and city auditor. Have the offices work collaboratively from the start so that everyone who needs to know is involved and we can most effectively address that issue, which that is a sample model from across the country. Average turnaround time, because these have been one-off and not an overwhelming number, we're able to address them, and we are working on our KPIs after we have this year's data.
And did I hear you correctly that you expect there'll be a calendar year, end of calendar year report that
we are looking at that, yes.
Be assembled or, okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Any additional questions? I'd just like to add briefly that it's great to hear the speed with which you respond. And fortunately, unfortunately, whatever, it is what it is. There's so many calls to the hotline. A lot of them are not related and can be correctly moved on to someone that can help them. But the idea that whoever contacts the hotline, that they feel they are being heard and getting a response, and that it's being taken care of, whether it's this department or any other department, just the idea that someone is paying attention and looking at it, I think is just such a vital part of it to give them closure and legitimacy to the hotline, that everything is getting reviewed. So, and that's what's happening, so it's fantastic. With no additional questions from the members, this item is a report only and no motion is required. We'll now move on to item number 9. Agenda item number 9, discussion regarding topics for future agenda items. Comments made during this portion of the agenda by individual members shall refer solely to the proposals for future agenda items, and any discussion shall be limited to whether or not such proposed items are within the purview of the committee, and/or whether such proposed items shall be placed on a future agenda. No discussion regarding the substance of any such proposed topic shall occur, and no action shall be taken. Does anyone have any suggestions regarding future agenda item topics? Seeing none at the moment, we will move on to item number 10. Item number 10, citizens' participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the committee. No subject may be acted upon by the committee unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward, give your name for the record, and the amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Is there anyone wishing to be heard at this time? Seeing no one, I'll close the citizens' participation and we'll move on to item number 11. Agenda item number 11, adjournment. The next Audit Oversight Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, January 12th. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. We don't know exactly if it'll be in this room or not, but we'll know. With that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.